think one reason could possibly be that the same reason why people go on the roller coaster things at the fairgrounds. They know they're going down at a terrific incline at an enormous rate, and they'll scream in fright, but they know they'll come safely up the other side. I should think it's possibly something, the same sort of thing. They go to these pictures thinking they'll have a scare, but they know that the boyfriend's there to put his arm around them and they'll be safe. And then I read in the paper, about 1954, I think it was, that they were going to make the first colour film of Frankenstein. And I remember seeing the one with Colin Clive playing Baron Frankenstein and Boris Karloff as the monster. This seems to be the one I'd love to do because it's a marvellous part. I remembered it as being, and that's really how it all came about. And I had no one, me or anyone, I don't think, had any idea that they would be this enormous success. But it was really such a spectacular and financial, which is very important, as you know, in most businesses, but particularly films. They've got to make money, otherwise you start making films. Well, this one literally made a fortune practically in the first fortnight. It was grossing so much. So the others went on and on, you know, they made 4 Frankensteins, 3 Draculas, 2 mummies. Now, I don't see him as blundering. I think the poor old chap, he's jolly clever, and why he wants to build a monster, for the same reason, perhaps Dave got a plastic kit monster to make it, but they didn't have them in 1850, whenever it was. He had to make it with a human being. Had to make it with a real one. And he always does jolly well. I mean, he gets these bits and bodies on the gibbets and the eyes and puts them all in, and always something goes wrong with the brain. So instead of getting dear old Chris Lee as he is, you get him as a whacking great monster, you see. But I don't think by any means he's a villain. I like to think old Frankenstein was perhaps working towards that thing, but something always goes wrong. There's always those wretched villagers, you know, milling around down there saying, you're frightening the children. Oh, completely, and I think everyone does today, because the medical profession, as far as I can gather from reading, and from what it is, they would not accept this, and it was the only way. And how can you know what is inside a human body without having a look? Yes. And they just wouldn't accept it. And he was so dedicated and so absolutely sure this was the way to find out. And as I say, both eyes closed, and it doesn't matter how he got the bodies, so long as he got them. And what has he done for us? I mean, there would be many deaths today if it hadn't been for Knox and his cadavers. Well, his knowledge of anatomy. Yes, and the inside for actual operations. Yes. You know, if you had an appendix, I mean, in those days, I suppose if you had an appendix, you just died before he had a go and opened up and said, "Oh, well, you don't want that little thing. You just nip it off there." So to Frankenstein, he used it. I believe they had a bit of trouble with the dog, but I wasn't present on those. No, they couldn't get him big enough. So I remember they thought, we can't get a big enough trained dog. I mean, to get massive, great brutes, but they were going on, you know, eating everyone. So they thought, well, let's go the other way. Let's get an ordinary, fairly big-sized dog and get a small Peter Cushing and a small Christopher Lee, which they did. They got boys from school and dressed them up exactly the same as Chris and me, and of course when they saw it on the rushes, it looked exactly like 2 schoolboys dressed up like Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing and a biggish dog. And the whole thing was scrubbed. Personally, I like one's own imagination to help you along with these when you're seeing these pictures, because if you're just shown one thing, it's not everyone's idea of how that thing should be. You know, it's like saying an artist, you're only to paint it this way, but artists have many, many different interpretations of the same theme. But personally, I would rather leave it to my imagination. With these particular films, the Hammer films, we used to shoot in 2 ways, one for the European countries and one for the East. And for the East, you really had to show everything because they required to. They asked particularly if there was to be seen, say, a terrible gory hand cut off at the wrist in a bath of boiling oil. The East liked to see that. But whereas for England and all points west, you just get the hand going and someone goes, and it's left to the imagination what they're looking at. Bull. Yes, the most terrifying thing I know is a bull. I once did a television play where I had to be scared of rats. A play called 1984. Yes. I wasn't at all frightened then, but I thought of the rats as bulls, and I think it helped the scene a lot.